She immediately signs the divorce papers without blinking. Elena stands up and walks out smiling. So sharp the billionaire's lawyer goes pale. Gavin's mouth curls into a victory grin like he just crushed the last thing that ever questioned him. Elena doesn't look back. She reaches the courtroom door, and her hand trembles once on the cold handle. Just once. Because a thin medical folder in her tote is counting down days she hasn't told a soul. Have you ever watched someone accept a loss way too easily? Have you ever stayed quiet while people called you things you never earned? Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's cover. Right there in that hallway, Gavin thinks he won. He thinks her smile means she gave up. He doesn't see the first domino already falling inside his deal pipeline. So what did Elena gain the second she stopped speaking? Quick. Tap like if you've ever been judged before anyone heard your side. Quick. Comment the country you're watching from. And be honest. Would you stay silent or expose everything? The judge calls the next case. The cameras drift away. Gavin's lawyer leans in and whispers, low and confused. She didn't ask for a penny. Gavin's grin gets wider. To him, it's proof she was nothing. But Elena steps into the elevator alone and exhales like she's been holding her breath for years. Her phone stays face down in her palm. No calls. No texts. Like she's scared of one name flashing on the screen. When the elevator dings, she walks into daylight and heads straight for a black car that isn't hers. The driver doesn't speak. He just nods once, like he's been waiting. Elena slides in, shuts the door, and finally opens the tote just enough to touch that medical folder. On the cover, a date is circled in red. She closes it before anyone can see. Because if Gavin finds out what the timeline says, he won't just try to win. He'll try to erase her. Now go back to the first time she realized love could be used as a weapon. Chicago made their marriage look normal from the outside. Gavin Royce, the billionaire with the sharp suit and sharper smile, had his name on buildings and his face on screens. Elena Royce had almost nothing online. No flashy posts. No couple goals photos. Her phone stayed face down like it was trained. In their condo, she moved like a shadow with purpose. Before dawn, she lined up his travel folders on the kitchen counter, flights, hotel notes, vendor lists, dinner times, who to shake hands with, who to avoid. His assistants would text in panic, and Elena would answer in clean, short lines that fixed the problem before it became a fire. Then she'd step back and let them take the credit. There were nights when it didn't feel like strategy. Early on, he'd pull her into a hotel elevator, fingers firm at her waist, mouth close enough to steal her breath. She'd look up at him, calm face, fast heartbeat, and he'd whisper her name like it was a secret he owned. She wanted him then. She still did, which scared her more than any rumor. Rumors never stopped. At dinner, his friends would talk around her like she was furniture. She's smart, one would say, smiling too wide. Smart enough to land a man like you, another would add, and the table would laugh. Opportunist, gold digger, quiet climber. They said it like a joke, but it landed like a label. Gavin never shut it down. Sometimes he'd squeeze Elena's hand under the table, like that made it okay. Like touch could cover disrespect. Elena would keep her face smooth and let the moment pass, because she learned early. If you fight every insult, you show them where it hurts. Quick. If you've ever been judged in a room full of smiling faces, hit like right now. Quick. And if you've ever had to stay calm just to stay safe, type, I know in the comments. But Elena carried a weight no one else could see. In her tote, a sealed medical folder sat behind a plain notebook. On one page, a date was circled in red so hard the pen nearly tore through. Every time she felt Gavin's hand on her waist, every time she heard people laugh at her, that circle pulsed in her mind like a warning. One evening, Gavin came home buzzing with wins. He tossed his phone onto the couch and started pacing, talking about new money, new partners, new cities. Illinois today, New York next, New Jersey after that. Elena listened, nodding at the right places, asking one or two questions that made him feel like a genius. She had questions of her own, like why his lawyers kept asking for confirmations, like why a deal that looked locked kept needing one more signature. Like why Gavin's favorite word was leverage, said with the same warmth he used on her skin. Later, when he fell asleep, Elena slid out of bed and went to the desk. She opened a folder that wasn't travel at all. Names, dates, numbers, the kind of list that could make a man rich or break him. Her phone lit up face down. She didn't flip it over. Not yet. In the morning, the air felt too still. Gavin's lawyer called for a meeting, just to tidy up paperwork. Gavin smiled like he was doing her a favor. At the office, Elena sat across from polished wood and polished lies. She watched Gavin talk. She watched men nod. She watched assumptions stack like bricks. Then she signed what they put in front of her, calm as a heartbeat on mute. The lawyer leaned close to Gavin and whispered, almost angry, "She didn't ask for a penny." Gavin smiled like that proved she was nothing. And Elena smiled back because the moment he believed that was the moment he stopped looking for the knife. After the wedding, the ring stayed warm, but the world around it stayed cold. Gavin's business never sat still. One week it was a quick trip to New York for lenders and late dinners. The next week it was New Jersey for a site visit that turned into a private party. Chicago became a home base on paper, not in real life. Every lobby had a guard who knew Gavin's name. Every restaurant had a table reserved before they asked. Elena started noticing the small things. How staff looked past her. How strangers took photos. How Gavin's team spoke to her like she was temporary. She kept receipts, not souvenirs. She memorized numbers, not compliments. And every time Gavin's plane wheels touched down, she wondered if the next city would bring a doctor or a funeral. Elena learned how to pack in 10 minutes without forgetting the one thing that mattered, the folder in her tote. On flights, Gavin would take calls loud enough for strangers to hear. He loved love loudly too. He'd post a photo of their hands on a marble table. He'd buy a watch for himself and call it our new chapter. He'd grab her waist in public like he needed the world to know she was taken. Elena loved carefully. She smiled when cameras turned, but her eyes stayed alert. She didn't tag locations. She didn't post family photos. She didn't give away her old schools, her old friends, her old anything. It wasn't shyness. It was control. And it irritated Gavin in a way he never said out loud. One night, after a board meeting ran long, the hallway lights in the office tower were half off. Everyone had left except a cleaning crew on another floor. Gavin shut the glass door behind them, loosened his tie, and kissed her like he was starving. Her back hit the window. The city lights blinked below. His hand slid down her spine. Heat and possession mixed together. For a few seconds, Elena forgot the rumors, forgot the names, forgot the date circled in red. Then she stopped him, not by pushing him away, just by laying one palm flat on his chest and holding there, calm. "Not here," she said, voice steady. Gavin's eyes flashed, half desire, half offense. He wanted a wife who melted on command. Elena wanted a husband who understood no without turning it into a test. Quick, subscribe if you like stories where the quiet one isn't weak, just patient. Quick, comment boundaries if you've ever had to set one with someone who hates hearing it. Later, in their hotel room, he tried again, slower, sweeter. Elena let him, but she kept one hand on her phone the whole time, face down like it could bite. That phone held a name Gavin had never seen, and a message she never opened in front of him. Because Elena wasn't just guarding her heart. She was guarding her identity. Her past wasn't messy, it was sealed. Too sealed. Gavin noticed. He started asking little questions that sounded like jokes. Why don't you ever talk about your family? Why don't you have old friends calling? Why do you keep your phone like that? Elena would smile and answer with nothing that mattered. Then she would change the subject back to him because men like Gavin didn't chase truth. They chased attention. The first real crack came in a New Jersey hotel bar. Gavin was with his friends, laughing, drinking, loose. Elena stood a few steps away, listening more than talking. A man in a gray blazer leaned in and said, loud enough for Elena to hear, "Marriage is just leverage, keeps the brand clean, makes investors relax." Gavin laughed. "Exactly," he said. Elena froze without turning around. Her ring felt suddenly heavy, and behind her calm face, something clicked into place, like a lock being turned from the inside. Gavin's world was noise. Cameras at charity dinners, applause in hotel ballrooms, private rooms where rich men laughed like nothing could touch them. Elena's world was quiet. Receipts lined up by date, spreadsheets clean enough to make a banker blush, and a calendar she never left open on a table. She learned the rules fast. In Gavin's orbit, people didn't say what they meant. They said what sounded expensive. At first, Gavin treated Elena like a prize he actually respected. He'd introduce her as my wife with a proud squeeze at her hip. But once he realized she wouldn't fight for attention, he started playing with that silence. It began small. At a dinner in Manhattan, a man asked Elena what she did for work. Before she could answer, Gavin chuckled. "She's great at organizing," he said. Like, freakishly great. Everyone laughed. Elena smiled too, because if she didn't, the room would smell blood. Another time, he called her low maintenance in front of donors. Like she was a car. Then he kissed her cheek, and the donors clapped like he'd made a sweet joke. Each joke was a test. Would she snap, cry, beg, perform? She did none of it. That made Gavin bolder. He started doing it in front of staff, where she couldn't correct him without looking difficult. He'd ask for a report she already finished, then say loud, "See? This is why I keep her." The assistants would laugh because they needed his money. Elena would nod and quietly write down the names of everyone who laughed too hard. Not for revenge, yet for patterns. Who echoed him, who fed him, who repeated his words to the press. At night, she'd open his laptop after he slept and clean up the mess he made in email threads, making him look steady. Then she'd save copies of the ugly drafts in a private folder, dated and labeled, the way you tag evidence before anyone knows there's a case. The night he bought the necklace, he did it like a show. A velvet box opened across the table, diamonds catching light. People leaned in. Phones came out. Elena's smile held. Gavin stood behind her and fastened it himself. His fingers brushed her neck. His lips followed, just for a second, and her whole body almost forgot to be careful. Almost, because she felt it, the way his touch carried a claim. Not love, ownership. When she looked up, his eyes were pleased. Not because she was happy, but because she stayed still. Quick. If you can feel the control in that kind of romance, hit like. Quick. And comment red flag. If you've ever seen a sweet moment turn into a power move. Back in the hotel, Gavin fell asleep with his arm draped over her waist like a seatbelt. Elena lay awake, watching the ceiling. Her phone buzzed face down. A reminder. She slid it into her palm under the sheets and flipped it just enough to read the words. The appointment date had been moved up. Her throat tightened. She deleted it in one swipe and turned the screen back down like nothing happened. Because the minute Gavin knew there was a clock, he'd turn it into a cage. The next morning, he was cheerful. Like the necklace solved something. Like expensive gifts could erase disrespect. Elena packed his bag, fixed his tie, and told him the car was waiting. On the way out, one of Gavin's friends, Trevor, the kind of guy who smiled with his teeth only, caught Gavin by the elevator. Elena was close enough to hear. "She's hiding something," Trevor said. Gavin didn't even look worried. He looked entertained. "Good," he replied. "I like a challenge." Elena kept walking, face calm. But inside, the folder in her tote felt heavier than it ever had. Because now she knew the truth. Gavin didn't love mysteries. He loved winning them. The prenup meeting didn't feel like a meeting. Felt like a stage. They sat in a Chicago conference room that smelled like leather chairs and cold coffee. Gavin arrived late on purpose, like time owed him respect. Two lawyers stood up fast. A third one smiled at Elena the way people smile at someone they've already decided is harmless. Gavin talked. Elena listened. He joked about protecting what I built. He told stories about hard work, risk, hustle. Every sentence had one message under it. I'm the engine, and you're the passenger. Elena kept her hands folded. She asked for the document once, calmly, and read it line by line while everyone watched her like she couldn't possibly understand. The paper was thick. The language was thicker. And there was that word again. Leverage. A lawyer explained what Elena would get if things ended. The tone was soft, almost kind, like they were handing her a tip. Elena nodded. Inside, something burned. Not greed. Not fear of losing money. Shame. Because she hated how fast strangers assumed she could be bought. In Illinois, a prenup only counts if it's in writing and signed. Ilga. Gavin slid a pen toward her like he was feeding a pet. Elena picked it up. She didn't argue. She didn't ask for more time. She didn't demand a better deal. She signed. So easily that one lawyer blinked like the script got changed mid-scene. Gavin smiled, satisfied, like he just locked a door. Afterward, in the back of the car, the city lights streaked past the tinted windows. Gavin's hand landed on Elena's thigh, heavy, possessive. He squeezed once, not gentle. "You're being very reasonable," he said. Reasonable. That word felt like a leash. Later that night, Gavin bragged on speakerphone, telling a partner. She signed fast. No drama. He said it like he'd trained her. Elena stood in the doorway and watched him talk, remembering the early days when he held her like she mattered. The memory came with heat, then disgust. She went to the sink, washed a wineglass that wasn't dirty, and listened for one detail. Which deal he named first, and which name he trusted most. She wrote it down. Then she tore the page out and hid it. Quick. If you've ever been treated like an accessory in your own life, comment, "Not a me." The driver took a turn, and Elena's tote shifted. The sealed medical folder thumped softly against the seat. Gavin didn't notice. Or maybe he noticed and didn't care. Back at the condo, he poured a drink and talked about the future like the future was a thing he owned. Elena nodded in the right places. She helped him loosen his tie. She listened to his bragging like it was weather. Then she went into the bedroom and shut the door. Her phone lit up face down on the dresser. This time she flipped it. A private message sat there from a number saved with no name. Trust still in place. Awaiting your trigger. Elena stared at the words until her eyes stopped blinking. She set the phone back down. Not face down. Right side up like she wasn't hiding anymore. Quick. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see what happens when the quiet one stops playing nice. Elena walked to the closet, opened a shoebox in the back, and slid the signed prenup inside like it belonged with secrets. Then she took out a second folder. Not medical. Business. On the first page was a list of names Gavin trusted. And next to each name was a date. Elena circled one date in red. The same red. The ink didn't shake. Because silence was never surrender. It was protection. And now it was a weapon. She shoves open the penthouse door, and Elena walks straight into a room full of smiles that don't reach anyone's eyes. The music is soft. The laughter is loud. And every person in here is watching her like she's a product on a shelf. Before we go further, hit like if you've ever been judged in silence. And comment your country because I want to know where you're watching from. Manhattan parties didn't feel like fun. They felt like inspections. Gavin's penthouse sat high above the city. Glass walls, white couches, perfect views. People came dressed like they were walking into a magazine photo. They kissed Gavin's cheek, called him legend, and spoke about money like it was weather. Elena stood beside him, calm, quiet, unreadable. That drove them crazy. A woman with a sharp bob and a sharper laugh leaned close to Elena with a champagne smile. "You should post more," she said. "Show people you're grateful." Gavin loves a woman who knows how to shine. Grateful. Like Elena was lucky to be allowed in the room. Gavin heard it and didn't correct it. He just slid his arm around Elena's waist, and the crowd smiled like they just watched him put a collar on a stray. Elena didn't flinch. Not because it didn't sting. Because she was counting. Who said what? Who watched her hands? Who stared a little too long at her bag when she set it down? Comment, "They tried it," if you've ever been disrespected with a smile. Later, a donor's daughter, young, loud, fearless, touched Gavin's sleeve and laughed at something he said. Her fingers stayed there a second too long. Gavin didn't pull away. He liked being wanted. He liked proving it. Elena saw it, and something hot flashed in her chest, fast and unwanted. Desire mixed with disgust, because she remembered those early nights when his hands were only hers. She didn't react. That was the part people couldn't stand. They wanted tears. They wanted jealousy. They wanted a scene. Instead, Elena lifted her glass and took one slow sip, like nothing in the room could move her. Gavin's eyes tracked her the whole time. When the party shifted toward the balcony, he caught her in the hallway. No cameras, no friends, just dim light and expensive quiet. His palm hit the wall beside her head. Then his body closed the space. "Are you embarrassed?" he asked, voice low. It sounded like a lover's question. It wasn't. It was a warning dressed as intimacy. Elena felt her back touch the wall. She smelled his cologne and the sweet burn of his drink. "Why would I be?" she said. Gavin's hand slid to her jaw, not gentle. He tipped her face up like he was checking if she still belonged to him. "I don't like guessing," he said. Elena's stomach tightened. This is how it started. With questions that weren't questions. Fear rose, quiet, sharp, because she could feel how fast desire could turn into control in a man like him. She didn't push him. She leaned in first. Quick kiss. Soft. Just enough. His grip loosened. For a moment, relief washed through her, and she hated herself for needing that relief. If you've ever had to use calm to survive someone's mood, hit like. He pressed his forehead to hers, breathing hard, and whispered, "Don't make me look stupid." Elena smiled like it was sweet. Inside, she heard the red date on her folder ticking. When they walked back out, the party laughed again, louder than before. Elena played her role, quiet wife, pretty face, no opinions. Then she saw Gavin's lawyer near the kitchen island. He wasn't drinking. He was hunched over a laptop, fingers moving fast. Elena drifted closer like she was looking for ice. On the screen, her name, a background search, address lines, old records, a spinning wheel, then glitch. The page flashed white. A warning box popped up, like the system hit a wall it couldn't climb. The lawyer's face drained. He refreshed. Same thing. Elena stepped back before he looked up. Her pulse stayed calm, but her throat went dry, because whatever he just found, or couldn't find, was about to make Gavin curious. And Gavin's curiosity wasn't sweet. It was hungry. The next week, Gavin's kindness got organized. He stopped asking questions like a husband. He started asking them like a prosecutor. "Where were you this morning? Why is your phone always down? Why don't you ever want anything?" He said it with a smile, but his eyes stayed sharp. Then the help showed up. A new assistant, a new security guy, a new accountant who just wanted to clean up the books. Gavin didn't say he was watching Elena. He didn't have to. Elena felt it in the way doors closed behind her now. In the way staff looked away when she entered a room. In the way Gavin started leaving papers face up on the counter, like bait. He even left a receipt book open on the kitchen island, pages blank like an invitation. And one night, he accidentally left a folder labeled personal, bold and obvious, like he wanted her hands to reach for it. Elena didn't touch it, not because she wasn't curious, because she knew curiosity was the trap. Gavin thought she was hiding money. The funny part was, Elena wasn't hiding money. She was hiding time. The medical folder stayed zipped inside her tote, but the date inside her head moved closer every morning. So Elena did what she always did. She bought time, not with fights, with warmth. That night, she sat beside Gavin on the couch and touched his wrist like she missed him. Soft voice, slow fingers, a kiss that kept him close while her mind stayed awake. Gavin melted into it. He always did, because control feels better when it looks like love. Elena let him think he was winning. Then she reached for his phone. "Let me order food," she said. He handed it over without thinking, because he was relaxed. Elena didn't search his messages. She didn't have to. She opened the voicemail app, and she saved the ones he never bothered deleting. The voice notes where he bragged, where he joked about keeping her quiet, where he told friends he could make her leave with nothing. Elena saved them, labeled them, and sent copies to a hidden email that wasn't connected to her name. Her hands didn't shake. Not until she was alone. In the bathroom, she locked the door and stared at her reflection. Her face looked normal. Her eyes didn't. They looked like someone running out of road. Her phone buzzed. A clinic number. Elena stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then she listened to the voicemail in the sink-like glow. A reminder. A new appointment time. Sooner. She deleted it because she couldn't afford Gavin hearing that voice. Then she opened her tote and pulled the medical folder halfway out. Stage 4. Aggressive. Months. The words sat there like a sentence. Her chest tightened, and for 1 second, fear tried to take the wheel. Then she breathed it back down. Because fear was expensive, and she couldn't afford it. Pause. Who's scarier? A loud enemy, or a quiet one with a deadline? 2 days later, Gavin cornered her in the kitchen. No guests, no staff, just bright morning light and a man who couldn't stand not being in control. I know you're hiding something, he said. Elena rinsed a coffee mug like she didn't hear him. He stepped closer. If you leave, he said, you'll leave with nothing. Elena turned off the water. She looked at him and said, okay. Too quick. Too calm. Gavin blinked, thrown off. He wanted begging. He wanted panic. Instead, he got permission, and that scared him more than a fight ever could. If you felt that, okay, in your chest, comment she's done. Gavin leaned in, voice low, like he was about to kiss her or threaten her. Elena didn't move. Her phone buzzed face down on the counter. A new message. She didn't pick it up. Not yet, because the next step wasn't emotional. It was timed. On the day of the hearing, Elena wore the same calm like armor. The courthouse steps were packed with cameras and whispers. People love a rich man's breakup. They love picking a winner before the judge even sits. Reporters called Gavin's name like he was a movie star. They barely said Elena's. A woman in a blazer shoved a mic toward her anyway. Are you scared? She asked. Elena didn't slow down. Scared. If the reporter only knew what was in Elena's tote, she'd stop asking questions and start praying. Gavin arrived smiling, like a man walking into a celebration. His suit was perfect. His hair was perfect. His confidence was loud. Elena arrived quiet. No big sunglasses. No speech to reporters. No tears. Just a straight walk, shoulders back, eyes forward. Inside, everyone waited for fireworks. They didn't get any. Elena's lawyer spoke in short, clean sentences. Gavin's lawyer spoke like he was writing headlines. Gavin kept glancing at Elena like she was supposed to react. She didn't. That silence started to itch at him. You could see it in his jaw, in the way his fingers tapped the table, in the tiny smiles he kept forcing like the camera still mattered. At one point, his lawyer said the words fair outcome with a straight face. Elena almost laughed. Almost. At the table, Gavin leaned in close, so close his breath warmed her ear. You could have had everything, he murmured. It sounded romantic. It wasn't. It was an intimate threat, the kind only a husband can deliver. Because everything meant him, his rules, his name, his version of her. Elena kept her eyes on the judge. Then she smiled. Not happy. Decided. Gavin's fingers tapped faster. Because he couldn't read her. He wanted her to look small. She looked finished. If you've ever seen someone lose on purpose, type calculated. Subscribe for more emotional, twist-heavy stories. The judge reviewed the papers, asked 2 questions, and moved on like it was routine. That's what made it brutal. No drama meant no distraction. When it was done, Gavin stood first and offered Elena a look like he expected her to break now that it was official. Elena gathered her bag and stood too. Her hand trembled once at the door. Then she steadied it. Gavin caught the tremble and smiled. Hungry. You see? His eyes said. Elena didn't look back. Outside, his lawyer approached him with a tight face and whispered, She didn't ask for a penny. Gavin laughed under his breath. Like that settled everything. He lifted his chin toward the reporters, like he wanted them to see the win. Then he pulled out his phone and texted one invite to half of Manhattan. Victory dinner. Tonight, a toast to himself. A joke about Elena leaving empty-handed. The city would clap, and Gavin would soak it up. Elena watched him send it from across the sidewalk. Then she walked away, not to cry, not to hide, to prepare. In a quiet room later, Elena laid out contracts beside her medical file like she was setting a table. One pen, one stack of paper, one clock. She didn't open the medical file. She didn't need to. She could feel it in her bones. Share this if you know someone who loves courtroom revenge with rich people games. Her phone buzzed again. The same nameless number. A single line. Tonight. Elena stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then she slid the contracts into neat piles and wrote small notes in the margins. Names, dates, pressure points. Not angry notes. Clean notes. The kind that end up in court. On the top page, she wrote 3 words. Let him talk. Then she flipped her phone right side up. And waited. Gavin raised his glass like a king who thought the war was over. The Manhattan restaurant glowed with candlelight and expensive perfume. His friends laughed too loud. The donors smiled too wide. The cameras caught every angle. Gavin toasted himself. He made a joke about Elena leaving empty-handed. The room laughed on command. A woman at the end of the table even clapped like it was a show. Gavin soaked it up, but his eyes kept sliding to his phone like it might betray him. Under the table, his knee bounced once. Because even while he smiled, he was waiting for a text that never came. His chief deal officer slid a tablet across the table. Casual. Like it wasn't a problem. But Gavin's eyes tightened when he read it. Dallas acquisition stalled in the final hour. Lender wants updated governance comfort. Gavin blinked, then laughed like it was nothing. Just paperwork, he said, loud enough for the table. Then he leaned in and whispered, tell them I'm on my way to a bigger win. His deal officer's smile stayed glued on, but his knuckles turned white around the tablet. Because this wasn't a glitch. It was a wall. Gavin's hand reached under the table and locked around the wrist of a donor's daughter sitting close. Too tight. Power moved disguised as flirting. Her smile faltered. Gavin didn't notice. He was staring at the words on that screen like they were an insult. Big deals can get slowed down by extra compliance and governance review, and delays can snowball fast once lenders get nervous in contracts. A waiter poured wine. Gavin didn't taste it. He forced another laugh, louder, like volume could change reality. Relax, he told the table. They're lucky I picked them. A few people laughed. A few people glanced at each other. Gavin saw the glances. Humiliation hit him like heat behind the eyes. Not private humiliation. Public. The kind that makes a man reckless. He leaned toward his deal officer, still smiling for the room. Fix it, he whispered through his teeth. The officer nodded, but his eyes said something else. We already tried. Pause. Who's scarier? A loud enemy, or a quiet one with a deadline? Gavin lifted his glass again, forcing a toast like a shield. To loyalty, he said, and that word tasted wrong, because he didn't know who was loyal anymore. His phone buzzed. One alert, then another. He kept smiling until the smile started to hurt. He glanced down. Nevada credit line. Temporarily frozen. Effective at midnight. For the first time all night, Gavin swallowed hard. He didn't show it. Not yet. But his eyes searched the room like the enemy had to be sitting somewhere he could buy. And that was the open secret. Gavin couldn't fight what he couldn't see. He stood up too fast and nearly knocked his chair. People laughed, thinking it was a joke. Gavin raised his hands. Bathroom break, he said, grinning. In the hallway, his grin died. He called his lawyer. No answer. He called again. Voicemail. He texted his banker. Call me now. 3 dots showed up like the banker was typing. Then the dots vanished. Nothing came. Gavin stared at the screen like it was disobeying him on purpose. Comment your country. Do you think Elena is behind this? Or is it someone else? When he walked back in, the room looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. Because now Gavin knew the truth. Someone had touched his money. And they didn't ask permission. Elena cut her hair in a bathroom sink and left the city like it never owned her. No penthouse. No driver. No glam. Just a small rental outside Tampa with thin walls and a cheap couch that squeaked when she sat down. The place smelled like old paint and hot air. Perfect. Nobody in Gavin's world would ever look here. She paid in a way that didn't leave a trail. She didn't post. She didn't call anyone back. She became a ghost on purpose. The first morning, she bought a printer from a big box store with cash and kept her head down in line. She wore a plain hoodie, hair tucked, face blank. The cashier didn't recognize her. Elena felt a strange wave of relief, like she could finally breathe without being watched. Then the dread came right behind it, because breathing didn't change the clock. On the kitchen table, she laid out printed contracts in neat stacks. She highlighted clauses, circled dates, and drew lines between Gavin's acquisitions like she was mapping weak points on a body. A timeline, a pressure chart, a plan that didn't need shouting. She wrote down every city Gavin loved to brag about. Chicago, New York, Jersey, Dallas, Nevada. Then she wrote the names of the people who signed things for him, and the names of the people who smiled in rooms where she got insulted. Because those were the people who would talk first when panic hit. The medical folder sat beside it, quiet and ugly. Elena opened it alone. Stage 4. Aggressive. Time measured in months. Her stomach turned, and she pressed 2 fingers to her mouth like that could hold the panic in. Fear came anyway, not fear of dying. Fear of disappearing with her name still attached to Gavin's story. Fear of being remembered as the quiet wife who got tossed aside. Elena closed the folder and stared at the wall until the fear turned into something harder. Fuel. That night, she lay on the bed with a thin blanket and watched an old clip of Gavin on stage. Confident, loud, smiling like the world owed him applause. Her fingers paused at her collarbone, remembering his mouth there. Desire still lived in her. It made her angry, because she hated that her body could miss someone her mind didn't trust. She turned the phone face down. Then she flipped it back over. Not because she was lonely, because she was ready. She opened her notes app and typed one sentence. V calls, don't answer. Then she typed another. Save everything. She imagined Gavin's voice on a voicemail. Soft like love, sharp like a knife. And she knew she'd keep it. Not for comfort. For proof. If you've ever turned pain into a plan, hit like. And if you're still here, comment, I'm watching. So I know you want the payoff. Elena sat up, grabbed a pen, and wrote one line at the top of a clean page. Let him talk first. She underlined it twice. Then she opened a fresh email draft. No emotion. No insults. Just a subject line. Governance. Elena didn't send it. Not yet. Because timing was the difference between a warning and a collapse. A knock hit the door. 2 quick taps. Elena froze. Her hands moved fast. Papers into a box. Folder under the couch. Phone face down. Another knock. Package, a man's voice called out. Elena waited until the footsteps walked away. Only then did she breathe. Outside, a car drove past slow, headlights washing over the blinds. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe Gavin had started looking. Elena didn't move until the light was gone. Then she whispered, to nobody, let him talk, and waited for the first mistake. Like this if you want the victory dinner fallout in the next part. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next move is the one Gavin can't undo. Share this with a friend who loves rich people revenge stories. Comment your country again, and type Team Elena or Team Gavin. No middle ground. He slams his office door so hard the glass shakes, and Gavin barks, find me a face. Like someone stole his name and walked out with it. Inside that room, 6 screens glow with numbers, charts, and frozen deals. His empire looks fine from the outside. Inside, it's choking. And somewhere far from this glass box, Elena is sitting at a cheap table with 1 pen, 3 folders, and a clock that doesn't care how rich he is. Before we dive into this next move, smash like if you've ever watched someone pretend they're fine while everything quietly falls apart. And drop your country in the comments. Let's see where you're watching this from in the world. Gavin tried what always worked first. Pressure. He called. He sent people. He traded favors. Every path hit the same wall. Private investor group. A chairlady. No photo. No interview. No direct line. His counsel came back with letters, cold, perfect, polite. They answered every point without giving a single clue who was behind them. Gavin hated it. He wasn't used to doors he couldn't kick open. In his Manhattan office, phones rang, screens flashed, staff hurried past, pretending everything was normal. But you could feel it in the air, tight, thin, like everyone was waiting for a sound they couldn't name. Across the country, Elena sat at a small table with one lamp and one pen. No view, no staff, no noise, just contracts. She drew lines between companies and shell names, arrows from Gavin's signature to lenders' notes, circles around one repeating phrase. Governance concerns. The same phrase that was choking his Dallas deal, then the Nevada line, then one more partner in California. If you've ever watched quiet paperwork beat loud power, hit like right now. Back in Manhattan, Gavin pulled his assistant into his office and shut the door. She stepped close when he crooked a finger, used to the game. He let her kiss his jaw, let her hands wind around his neck, trying to feel something like control again. Nothing. His mind wasn't in that room. It was in a courtroom, watching Elena's calm face and that small, sharp smile that landed like a decision. "Do you think they're bluffing?" the assistant whispered, trying to be useful and wanted at the same time. Gavin pulled back. "If they were bluffing," he said, "Dallas would be closed." He stared out the window at the city. "Somebody's pulling strings," he muttered. "Somebody who doesn't need a face." Comment and no face. If you think a hidden enemy is more dangerous than one you can see. That afternoon, his general counsel walked in with a third message. "California partner," she said. "They're pausing the merger, pending governance concerns." Gavin laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Is that the new word for fear?" he asked. The counsel didn't answer. She just laid the paper on his desk. On another table, in another state, Elena underlined the same phrase. Pending governance concerns. She didn't smile. She just kept writing. And as Gavin's board members started texting each other without looping him in, one truth settled over him like a chill. Whoever this chairlady was, she didn't want a meeting. She wanted a record. The day Elena stopped answering Gavin directly, everything got clearer. Not easier. Clearer. She told her attorney one rule. Nothing from me without a letterhead. Every message, every question, every attempt at a late night, "Let's talk this out," had to go through counsel. No more emotional replies. No more "you misunderstood." Just paper. The first time Gavin texted, "We need to talk like adults," Elena saw the notification, then slid the phone across the table to her attorney. "Answer that," she said. Professionally, her attorney drafted one clean line about legal boundaries. Elena read it, nodded, and said, "Good. Send." If you've ever had to stop explaining yourself and put a boundary up, hit like. Silence became the trap. Every time Gavin reached out, he created something she could save. She timed one block so it landed 5 minutes before he walked on stage for a press dinner. His texts turned from charm to anger in less than an hour. She didn't answer any of them. She let tabloids call her names. Quiet climber. Gold digger. Married for leverage. Gavin didn't correct them. He liked the story. That was the point. Because the more he enjoyed the lies, the looser his tongue got in interviews. Meanwhile, Elena met her attorney in a nearly empty office at night. The building was quiet, lights low, city hum far below. He told her, "You don't have to keep carrying this alone." She stepped just close enough for a harmless compliment to land. "You smell steady," he said with a tired smile. "Like you don't rattle easy." For a second, the air between them shifted. His eyes dropped to her mouth. The moment could have turned into something else. Elena stepped back. Her body was allowed to want warmth. Her heart was locked. "I'm not here for comfort," she said softly. "I'm here for order." Relief flickered in her chest as she saw the plan taking shape in his neatly stacked files. For once, she controlled the tempo. Share this with a friend who loves courtroom revenge stories with billionaire power games. That night, Gavin left a voicemail. His voice was soft, almost sweet. His words were not. "You think this little stunt is going to work?" he said. "You're making a mistake. You always needed me to matter." Elena listened to the whole thing without blinking. Then she hit save. Because in her world now, love was over. Evidence was not. Gavin only knew one way to handle fear. Get louder. So he did. He booked more press dinners. He smiled wider for cameras. He told bigger stories about temporary lender confusion and routine checks. He laughed off questions about the stalled deals like they were beneath him. Noise. He believed noise could drown paperwork. Elena knew better. From her small rental, she sent one careful instruction through counsel to a quiet investor group. Trigger governance review. Not in his name. Not in hers. Just a formal step that made deals pause without pointing at her. In real life, mergers and acquisitions can drag on when regulators and risk teams start asking more questions, especially when they worry about governance and control. Those delays can stretch timelines for months. So when Gavin's board chair called and asked for a meeting, nobody used the word emergency. They called it proactive. The word sounded safe. It wasn't. If you've ever watched someone talk louder while their control got weaker, hit like. In his penthouse, Gavin poured himself a drink and stared out at the city, replaying Elena in his head. He thought about their honeymoon night, how she had leaned into him then, relaxed, trusting. The memory made him angry now, because he couldn't tell if she had ever truly wanted him, or if she had just stayed quiet to stay safe. Jealousy crawled under his skin, not of another man, of her silence. He started picturing a shadow next to her in that Tampa rental he still hadn't found. Some faceless man holding her when she turned her phone off at night. It made his stomach twist. If she didn't want him, she had to want someone. That's how he thought. At the next press dinner, he talked about integrity into a mic, while a lender at the back of the room scrolled through a governance memo with his name at the top. Elena didn't watch the live feed. She watched the clock. Comment team her, or team him, in the chat. No middle ground. And drop your country so we see how many places are rooting for Elena's silence. By the time the board chair's assistant sent a calendar request, Gavin was already rehearsing his charm. He would walk in smiling. He always did. He had no idea that this time, the room wasn't waiting to clap. It was waiting to measure him. Elena's phone had been face down since long before Gavin. That wasn't a quirk. It was a rule. Growing up, she'd watched men change when they learned what her last name could buy. She'd watched cousins chased for access, not love. She'd heard her family whisper about protecting the trust, like it was a living thing. So Elena learned early. Stay low. Different city names on leases. Quiet accounts. No tags. No old photos tied to real addresses. Her family's structure, the one that later fed Gavin's miracles, was built to keep people from sniffing out where the real power sat. That's why the lawyer's background search had glitched back at the penthouse. Her life had been cleaned on purpose. When Gavin hired investigators, they came back with something that scared them more than dirt. Too clean. One thin credit file. No loud jobs. No wild history. No obvious wealth. Like someone had ironed out the record and left just enough for a legal name. Is that even real? One of them asked. Gavin didn't like that answer. Everyone leaves a mess, he said. Find hers. If you've ever kept parts of your life hidden because people use information as a weapon, hit like. Back in Tampa, Elena sat on the edge of the bed when her phone lit up with an unknown number. Late. She almost let it go dark. Then she swiped. Hello. The voice was smooth, familiar, male. L, he said, using a name she hadn't heard in years. You really married him. His tone carried something between warmth and judgment. You disappeared, he went on. Now I'm seeing your name in papers. You know we could have built something better than that guy. Elena's throat tightened, but her tone stayed flat. You should hang up, she said. He laughed softly. You still think hiding saves you? Panic tried to rise. She swallowed it. I don't hide, she said. I choose where I stand. Then she ended the call. Calm. She sat there for a long time, phone in her hand, feeling her past pressing against her present like a door someone else wanted to open. Comment team her or team him, and tell me your country. I want to see who around the world believes her silence is a strategy, not fear. Finally, Elena walked to the closet, reached up to the top shelf, and pulled down a slim, locked folder. One word on the tab. Authorship. She set it on the table next to the medical file and the stack of contracts. 3 different kinds of truth. All waiting. She didn't open it yet. Because once she did, there was no going back to being the quiet wife everyone thought they understood. Elena wasn't the face of Gavin's empire. That was the point. He owned headlines. He owned photos, stages, panels, quotes. What he didn't fully own was the deep structure that funded his lucky breaks. That's where Elena lived. Through counsel, she confirmed what she had suspected the night of the prenup. Gavin was not the only power in his own story. He held a big piece, but not the parent structure, not the quiet trust that had stepped in when his early bets were seconds from collapse. His name was loud. Her side was wired into the backbone. And that meant one thing: she didn't have to shout to move the ground. If you've ever realized someone who mocked you actually needed you, hit like. When Gavin threatened lawsuits, his voice shook the phone line. She's trying to hijack my work, he told his attorney, pacing the office. We buried that trust. We agreed. She signed. His counsel cut in. If you sue, she said carefully, we open discovery. We open books. We invite people to look. Gavin stopped. He liked control. He did not like strangers going through his deals. On the other side, Elena's team welcomed the idea of discovery. Let him file, one advisor said. We'd love the chance to line his words up next to his numbers. In a private lounge one evening, Elena met a man who wasn't new. Trusted. Old history. Not messy, just unfinished. He slid into the booth across from her. The lighting was low, warm. A song with a slow beat hummed in the background. You look tired, he said. I look awake, she answered. There was heat there, years of almosts and almost nots. He reached across the table, brushed his thumb along the back of her hand, then leaned in. Let me help you carry this, he murmured, eyes on her mouth. She let him kiss her once. Slow, controlled. Her heart remembered wanting things that had nothing to do with war. Then she stopped it with a whisper. Not now. Surprise flickered in his eyes. Not rejection. Discipline. If you like stories where the woman is not numb, just focused, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next twist. And drop your country in the comments, too. Back at her rental, Elena opened her calendar and tapped a date. New York Gala Night. The place where Gavin performed best. The place where she planned to stop performing at all. She stared at the little digital square until it didn't feel like just a date anymore. Felt like a deadline she chose. Not one the doctors gave her. Gavin walked into the boardroom smiling. It was a smile he'd used for years. Expensive, confident, trained. He expected to see the same thing he always saw. People ready to be impressed. Instead, he saw something that made his chest go tight. Every seat had a neat packet. Except his. His chair sat empty, bare. No papers. No summary. No script. He took the seat anyway. Did I miss the handout? He joked. Nobody laughed. The board chair folded his hands. Let's talk about the 3 transactions currently paused, he said. Dallas, Nevada, California. Gavin waved a hand. Normal noise, he said. Someone spooked. We smoothed them out. The chair didn't smile. Every lender note mentions the same phrase, he said. Governance comfort. Or lack of it. Gavin's smile thinned. He started talking faster. They're overthinking. We close. It's fine. You've seen me pull deals like this out of the fire before. He leaned on charm like it was a crutch. But the room didn't lean with him. If you've ever watched a room quietly turn on someone who thought they were untouchable, hit like. After the meeting, Gavin tried to fix what he knew best. Feelings. He turned the charm up. In the hallway, He pulled a board member's spouse into a hug that lingered a second too long. He whispered a joke into her ear, trying to prove he was still the guy everyone wanted close. Her laugh came out thin. Her husband's eyes went flat. Gavin felt the shift like a drop in air pressure. He walked away smiling anyway, but his jaw was set. Back inside the boardroom, his general counsel waited with a file in her hands. "This is coordinated," she said quietly. Gavin frowned. "What is?" She slid the file toward him. "Lenders, partners, governance reviews. The same phrases in different places. This isn't random. Coordinated." That word stuck in his throat. Coordination meant design. Design meant a person. "Who?" he asked. The counsel hesitated. "We don't know," she said. "Yet." Gavin thought of the faceless chairlady. Then, against his will, he saw Elena in his mind. That small smile in court. That okay in the kitchen. He shook his head. "She's gone," he muttered. She left with nothing. Far from that boardroom, at a small table with a cheap lamp, Elena turned another page and kept writing. Because while Gavin talked about nothing, she was building the one thing he never thought she'd reach for, the story behind his story. Comment your country and type "calculated" if you feel how close this is getting to his breaking point. She rips a thick stack of papers off the printer, and Elena slaps them onto the table like she's tired of being polite. The rental in Tampa is dead quiet, but her head isn't. Contracts, dates, names, the kind of paper that can ruin a man without anyone raising their voice. Hit like if you've ever been pushed so far you got calm instead of loud. Comment your country, and tell me, would you play the long game, or would you blow it up fast? Elena didn't build a trap with drama. She built it with mail. Notice letters, compliance requests, routine questions that sounded harmless but forced Gavin's team to answer in writing. Every letter went out the same way. Clean header, calm tone, and deadlines that didn't care about his mood. In another life, Elena would have sent one angry text and called it closure. In this life, she sent 10 quiet questions and called it pressure. Gavin's people kept calling it noise. That's what people say when they're scared but don't want to admit it. In Manhattan, his office looked busy on purpose. Assistants running, phones ringing, meetings booked back to back. A whole show designed to tell investors, "We're fine." But the real work wasn't happening in the room. It was happening in the space between emails. Because every time Gavin's counsel replied, Elena's counsel replied back with one more question. Not emotional, structural. It turned into a maze made of paper walls. Gavin could punch a wall if it was real. He couldn't punch a deadline. In Tampa, Elena sat with her hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, and a pen that never left her hand. She printed lender notes, stapled them to partner memos, and built a timeline like she was charting a slow illness. Some dates were deal dates. Some dates were medical. She kept them on the same page because in her mind they were the same kind of threat. Her ally showed up one evening with a grocery bag and no questions. Like he understood that asking, "Are you okay?" was a waste of air. He watched her hands move across the papers and said, "This is colder than I expected." Elena finally looked up. "It has to be," she said. He stepped behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. His fingers touched her shoulders, careful, waiting for permission. Elena wanted to lean back. She wanted to close her eyes and pretend the clock wasn't real. That want scared her. She let his hands stay there for 3 seconds. Then she stood. "I can't," she said. He didn't argue. He just nodded like he hated Gavin for turning tenderness into a risk. If you've ever had to shut your feelings off just to keep moving, comment, locked in. Across the country, Gavin's team started reacting instead of attacking. They answered one letter and created 2 more problems. They promised a document and missed a deadline. They tried to rush a signature and spooked a lender. Each mistake became a new page in Elena's file. Late that night, Elena stood in front of the bathroom mirror with the robe loose at her collar. Memory tried to sneak in, Gavin's hands, his voice, the way she used to almost believe. The memory stung, so she pulled the robe closed like she was sealing a door. Relief hit right after cold relief. On the table, the medical folder sat beside the contracts like a second clock. Elena didn't open it. She didn't need to. Then her attorney called. One question, steady and sharp. Do you want leverage? Or do you want the truth on record? Elena stared at the papers. Leverage meant a deal. Truth meant a war. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked her own question. What happens if he lies again? Her attorney paused. Then we stop playing defense, he said. Then we start choosing where the collapse happens. Elena hung up, looked at the list of paused deals, and circled one name in red. Not Gavin's. Partner. A gatekeeper. Someone who would crack first. Because paper walls don't fall all at once. They crumble at the weakest seam. And Elena knew exactly where Gavin's seams were. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see which seam tears first. The rumors got louder right when Elena got quieter. Tabloids called her a gold digger, a social climber, a quiet wife who fumbled the bag. They pulled old photos from nowhere and wrote captions like they knew her. And Gavin didn't correct it. He enjoyed it. Because if the world thought Elena was small, Gavin could keep feeling big. He let his friends repeat the story in lounges and private rooms. She never fit, they'd say. She was lucky, they'd say. She'll crawl back, they'd say. Gavin would smile like he was above it. But he wasn't. He fed it. He slipped little lines to a reporter. He let a source confirm that Elena never touched the business. He told a podcast host, laughing, she hates numbers. Then he posted a photo from a rooftop dinner. Just his glass. The city behind it. A caption about new beginnings. He wanted Elena to see it. He wanted her to feel replaced. He didn't know Elena felt something else entirely. Relief. Because when Gavin performed, he talked. And when he talked, he left fingerprints. Elena watched the headlines. Not with sadness, but with focus. She cut the worst ones out and stapled them into a folder. Then wrote a note on the cover. Let him get cocky. Because every headline told her what Gavin wanted people to believe. Which meant it told her what he feared. Her lawyer warned her. He's setting a story. If you step into it, you lose. Elena nodded. I'm not stepping into it, she said. I'm letting him build it taller. If you've ever been lied on and stayed quiet because you were planning hit-like. One night in Manhattan, Gavin sat in a booth with a model on his arm. The flirting was loud enough for strangers to hear. A photographer caught a shot on purpose. The model's nails traced his chest. Gavin flinched, just a twitch, because he wasn't thinking about her. He was thinking about Elena's silence. Desire and anger twisted together inside him. He wanted Elena's attention more than he wanted peace. He leaned close to the model and said something that made her laugh, then checked his phone again. No reply, no reaction. Elena was starving him. And hunger makes men reckless. Type calculated, if you've ever watched someone play weak just to stay safe. The next morning, a reporter caught Gavin outside an event and asked, Did Elena ever contribute to your core system? Gavin laughed too fast. She wouldn't even understand it, he said. The reporter smiled like it was a joke. But Gavin's lawyer didn't smile. Because words on camera don't disappear. They live. They get replayed. They get compared to documents. In Tampa, Elena watched the clip with the volume low. She wrote the exact timestamp on a sticky note and pressed it onto a folder. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. Not yet, she told herself. Let him talk. If you want the moment Elena finally speaks, hit like and stay with me. That afternoon, Gavin's friend Trevor sent him a voice note, laughing. Bro, she's getting cooked online, he said. You should do a victory lap. Gavin played it twice. Not because it was funny, because it sounded like safety. He wanted to believe the world had already decided Elena didn't matter. He didn't know Elena was letting the world decide that. On purpose. That night, Elena's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One text. He's getting desperate. Elena stared at it, then wrote 2 more words on her paper calendar. Press day. She didn't know who the nameless texter was. But she knew one thing. They were close enough to Gavin to smell the panic. Comment your country and type team her or team him, no middle ground. Elena unlocked the folder with one hand and didn't let herself breathe until it was open. Inside were timestamps, early drafts, and screenshots of old work files, pages she had written when Gavin still called her baby, like it meant something. There were meeting notes from before the company had a logo. There were diagrams in the margins. There were messages from engineers asking Elena for answers, not Gavin. And there were witness statements, short, blunt emails that said the quiet part out loud. Elena built this. Gavin presented it. The folder felt heavier than money. Felt like identity. Her attorney had warned her. The second she made authorship public, she wouldn't just be a wife in a gossip story. She'd become a target. Gavin would go for her name, her character, her sanity, anything but the facts. Elena pictured it clear as day. A headline, a leak, a source close to Gavin saying she was unstable. A smear campaign that didn't need proof. For a second, fear tried to talk her out of it. Then she remembered the other clock. The one sitting in a folder on her table. She didn't have the luxury of being scared. And the worst part? She knew exactly why Gavin believed he could take credit. Because Elena had let him. Not out of weakness. Out of protection. Years ago, when the company was still small, she'd told herself, let him be the face. I'll be the spine. She thought love meant teamwork. Now she understood love had been used as cover. She flipped to the last section. A clean list. What exists. Where it lives. Who touched it. Who never did. She highlighted one line in a contract copy and read it twice. No employment relationship. No assignment executed. Those words looked boring. But boring words can burn down empires. Her trusted ally came by after dark, standing in the doorway like he didn't want to scare her. You look like you're about to jump off a cliff, he said. Elena didn't look up. I'm about to push someone, she answered. He walked behind her and set a mug down, warm tea, no questions. His thumb brushed the corner of her mouth as if he was checking if she was real. For 1 second, she let it happen. Then she caught his wrist. Don't distract me, she said, not mean, just final. He nodded, backing off. Because the room wasn't for comfort. It was for decisions. CTA. If you've ever had to choose between love and respect, comment respect. Elena opened a blank page and wrote 2 words in big letters. Cease. Desist. A cease-and-desist letter isn't a court order by itself. It's a formal notice that can set up a lawsuit if the other side keeps going Dupaslopro. She stared at the words until her eyes went dry. Then she slid the authorship folder back into the safe and locked it. Not because she was scared. Because timing mattered. She wanted Gavin to lie on record one more time. Publicly. Clearly. So when she dropped the folder, nobody could call it revenge. Only correction. Her ally's hand hovered near her waist, like he wanted to hold her up. Elena shook her head. Not now, she whispered. He swallowed whatever he wanted to say and just stood there, loyal and quiet. Elena looked at the medical folder on the table. She didn't open it, but she tapped it once with her fingertip like she was tapping a timer. Share this with someone who loves stories where receipts beat money. Her phone lit up with a news alert. Gavin scheduled a press sit-down. He was going to talk. Elena smiled once. Small. Sharp. Good, she whispered, because now she knew exactly where to aim. If you're still here, hit like, because the next lie is going to cost him. Gavin exploded in a room full of people who needed him. Executives lined the table, laptops open, faces tight. Someone had just told him a lender wanted more comfort, and another partner was reviewing risk. Gavin slammed his palm down. She's nothing, he snapped. Do you hear me? Nothing. I made her. The room went silent. Not respectful silent. Fear silent. Because once a powerful man starts talking like that, everyone wonders when they'll be the next target. Gavin paced, jaw clenched, eyes wild. She's trying to embarrass me, he said. She's trying to steal my story. He pointed at a screen where a paused deal glowed like a warning. I don't lose, he said. One executive cleared his throat. Sir, they're asking who has control rights. They want signatures. They want proof. Gavin laughed. A hard laugh. Tell them I do, he said. The executive didn't move. Gavin saw the hesitation and snapped. What? He barked. Still nothing. Somebody's phone sat on the table. Screen dark. Somebody hit record. Gavin didn't notice. He was too busy feeding his own rage. He leaned forward and lowered his voice, like a threat. If any of you talk to her, he said, you're done. That was the moment the room changed. Because it wasn't about business anymore. It was about fear. After the blow-up, Gavin tried to calm himself the way he always did. Touch. Noise. A quick hookup in a private room. Hands on him, mouth on him, someone laughing like it was fun. But it felt empty. Frantic. Like he was chasing proof that he still owned something. He finished, rolled away, and stared at the ceiling like it could answer him. Shame crawled up his throat. Not shame for what he did. Shame that Elena's silence was beating him. He reached for his phone and scrolled through old photos of Elena. Her face turned away from cameras, her smile small, her eyes always watching. He hated that he missed her. He hated it more that he didn't know if she missed him. Comment your country. Would you expose that recording right away? Or save it for the perfect moment? In Tampa, Elena got the audio through a back channel. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She listened once, then tagged the timestamp like it was a work task. She saved it in a folder named Simple, because that's what it was. Simple proof. Then she played it again. Not because she enjoyed it, because she needed to hear the exact words. I made her. That line hit a nerve, a deep, sick disgust, because she remembered every late night she spent cleaning his chaos. Every time she fixed his numbers and watched him take the credit with a grin. Gavin sent a message. Talk to me like an adult. Elena stared at it for 2 seconds. Deleted. She drafted a reply through counsel instead. Not a fight. A boundary. Because if Gavin wanted adult, he could get adult. In court. On record. Then Gavin did what he always did when he didn't get what he wanted. He left a voicemail. Soft voice. Sharp threat. You're making me do this, he said. Answer me, Elena. Don't make this ugly. Elena saved it without blinking. If you've ever watched someone beg for peace after they caused chaos, hit like. That night, Elena lay in bed and felt the old desire try to rise again. Not desire for Gavin. Desire for a life where she didn't have to keep evidence just to stay safe. Her throat tightened. She turned on her side and whispered, not today, because the plan wasn't done, and the clock was still running. Her phone buzzed with one more message. He's going public. Elena closed her eyes. Let him, she whispered, because the louder he got, the more he'd give her. Subscribe if you want to see what Elena does with that recording. Gavin went to the press because he couldn't stand losing in silence. He sat under bright studio lights with a calm smile that didn't match his eyes. He called Elena a con artist. He said she was trying to hijack his company. He said she never built anything. He didn't just insult her. He put it on record. The host nodded like Gavin was telling a sad story. The camera zoomed in on his face like he was the victim. Gavin loved that part. He loved being the wounded hero. Elena watched the clip alone. No friends in the room. No team cheering. Just a cheap chair, a laptop, and her own heartbeat. Her jaw tightened. She touched the inside of her wrist where Gavin used to hold her when he wanted to steer her. Then she dropped her hand like it burned. Rage rose. Quiet. Clean. Focused. Her attorney's voice came through the phone. Do not answer emotionally, he said. Answer structurally. Elena stared at the screen where Gavin's smile froze mid-sentence. Good, she whispered, because now he lied on record. CTA. If you've ever been lied on in public, comment receipts. Elena opened her notebook and wrote 3 columns. What he said. What the documents say. What we release next. Then she wrote a 4th column. What he'll do when he panics. Because Gavin always panicked the same way. He got louder. He got meaner. He got sloppy. She pulled up a blank document and started drafting a response. Not a rant. A notice. Short sentences. Dates. References. Her fingers moved fast. but her face stayed still. Then she stopped. Not because she ran out of words, because she remembered the rule. Let him talk first. So she saved the file, titled it Final Notice, and didn't send it. Yet, outside, thunder rolled in the distance, Florida summer style, quick and loud. Inside, Elena's world stayed quiet. Her phone buzzed. A message from the nameless number. He thinks he's winning. Elena typed one word back. Let. Then she deleted the message thread. Not because she was scared, because she didn't need more words. She needed timing. She went to the kitchen sink, ran cold water, and held her wrists under it until her breathing slowed. Relief came in a small wave. Then dread followed, because she knew what Gavin would do next. He'd come for her face. He'd come for her past. He'd pay someone to find a crack. Elena dried her hands and walked back to the table. She opened the medical folder. Just once. The red-circled date stared back at her. Her breath caught. Fear tried to climb. Then she forced it down. Not today, she said, and she reached for her pen. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next chapter is where the truth starts cutting back. Elena wrote one line at the top of a fresh page. If he lies again, we activate. She underlined it. Twice. Then she closed the medical folder and slid it under the contracts like she was telling the clock, you don't get to lead. Somewhere in Manhattan, Gavin smiled for cameras, not knowing he just lit the match. Hit like if you want the next part. Share this story with a friend who lives for rich people revenge. Comment your country and type, she's ready. If you think Elena is about to flip the whole board, she slams a hospital folder onto the passenger seat, and Elena grips the steering wheel so hard her knuckles go white. She's parked outside the clinic like she's waiting for someone to jump her. But the thing coming for her isn't a person. It's time. Tap the like button if you've ever carried bad news alone. Comment your country and tell me. Would you tell your ex the truth? Or would you keep it to yourself? Elena walked into the appointment like she was walking into court. Chin up. Face calm. Voice steady. The nurse smiled and asked her to sign a form. Elena signed it without reading every line. That's how you know she was scared. Because Elena reads everything. The waiting room TV played some happy morning show. People laughed at a joke Elena couldn't hear. Elena's phone stayed face down on her lap. Like always. When they finally called her name, Elena stood up too fast. For half a second, her vision pinched. Then she smiled like nothing happened. The doctor didn't waste her time with soft words. He pointed at the results, spoke in clean sentences, and the world shrank down to one simple meaning. Soon. Not someday. Soon. Elena nodded like she was hearing a weather report. Inside, her stomach dropped. Fear has a sound, and hers was quiet. The doctor asked if she had support. Elena almost laughed. Support was a luxury. She told him she was fine. He didn't believe her, but he let it go. He offered schedules and next steps. Elena heard the words, but what she saw was Gavin's face. That victory grin. That look that said, I outlast everyone. The thought made Elena's throat burn. Not because she loved him, because she hated the idea that he might outlive the lie. On the way out, the nurse handed Elena a follow-up card. Elena thanked her like it was a dinner reservation. Then she got to her car and just sat there. Air conditioning blasting. Heart too loud. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from her attorney. 2 from an unknown number. 0 from Gavin. That last part hit harder than it should. Desire is stupid like that. It wakes up even when love is dead. Elena stared at the unknown number. No name. No photo. Just a single message. He's about to talk. Elena's fingers hovered over the screen. She didn't reply. She didn't need the full sentence. She needed confirmation. Then she called her attorney back. He didn't ask how she was. He asked, do you want to slow down? Slow down meant giving Gavin room. Slow down meant letting him rewrite her name while she sat quiet. No, Elena said. Her attorney exhaled. Okay, he said. Then we tightened the plan. Relief and dread came together. Relief because she wasn't floating anymore. Dread because tightening meant no mistakes. If you've ever had to keep moving while your heart was breaking, type, still moving. In the parking lot, her ally was waiting near the curb like he'd been pacing for an hour. He saw her face and stopped. "You okay?" he asked. Elena opened her mouth, almost told him. Then she swallowed the truth like it was a pill. "I'm working," she said. He stepped closer anyway, pressed his forehead to hers and held still. For one breath, Elena felt safe. That feeling made her angry, because safety shouldn't feel rare. She pulled back. Not cold. Disciplined. "I need clarity," she whispered. He nodded. "Tell me what you need," he said. Elena drove back to the rental, walked straight to the table, and opened her notebook. One date circled in red. The New York Gala. She wrote under it, "Stage." Then she added one more line, smaller, "Say it where he can't erase it." She texted her attorney one line, "Prepare the recall triggers. Subscribe if you want to see what those triggers really are." Then Elena sat down, placed the medical folder beside the contracts, and didn't flinch. The endgame wasn't money. It was ownership. It was her name. And it was making sure Gavin couldn't outlive her with a lie. Elena picked up her pen. Inside, she whispered, "Let him talk," because the next time Gavin opened his mouth, he was going to hand her the final key. The gala email went out like an invitation and a warning at the same time. Tables, donors, cameras, sponsors, and one line that made Gavin's whole team sit up straight. "Chairlady, confirmed." No photo, no bio, just confirmed. Gavin's PR director called him immediately. "You shouldn't go," she said. "People are asking questions. If you show up, you look nervous." Gavin laughed like she was being dramatic. "Absence looks like guilt," he said. "I don't do guilt." He hung up and stared at his reflection in the window. For a second, he didn't see a winner. He saw a man with money, and a problem he couldn't buy. He tried to shake it off by calling his friends. They answered with laughter and plans. They wanted him loud. They wanted him shining. They wanted him to toast himself again. Gavin promised he would. But when the call ended, he stared at the word chairlady on the email like it was a threat. Drop a comment. Do you think Gavin goes to the gala to win, or to stalk Elena? In Tampa, Elena printed the seating chart and laid it flat on the table. She didn't look at the names first. She looked at the camera angles. Because truth is one thing, but truth on video is another. She traced her finger down the list until she found Gavin's table. Front, center, perfect. The kind of seat you choose when you think you're untouchable. Elena circled it. Then she circled the chairlady slot. Her slot. She didn't write her name. Not yet. She leaned back and listened to the silence in the rental. No city noise. No applause. Just the hum of the fridge and the steady beat of her own plan. Her ally watched from the doorway. "Gavin plays dirty," he said. Elena finally met his eyes. "So do deadlines," she answered. 2 gowns hung on the closet door. One silver, one black. Elena tried the silver first. It looked expensive. It looked loud. It looked like something the tabloids would want to fight about. Elena stared at herself and felt sick. Because she wasn't there to be a headline. She was there to be a fact. She took it off and reached for the black. Simple, quiet, certain. Her ally stepped closer as she zipped it halfway. "Let me," he said. Elena let him. His fingers moved slow, careful. Heat ran up her spine anyway. For a second she pictured Gavin's hands doing the same thing years ago, and she hated that the memory still had electricity. When her ally finished, his hands stayed on her hips 1 second too long. Elena turned, caught his wrists gently, and moved them away. Soft voice. Hard boundary. "Not now," she said. He swallowed. "Right," he whispered. Relief hit Elena, sharp and sad, because saying no was the only way she could stay herself. If you respect Elena's discipline, hit like. Back in Manhattan, Gavin crushed a champagne glass stem in his hand during a planning call. Nobody said a word. Blood didn't impress him. It just reminded him he could still feel something. Panic. He told the crisis team, "Find the chairlady. I want a face." The team said, "We're working on it." Gavin smiled. Working on it wasn't good enough. Because the gala wasn't just a party. It was a stage. And Gavin could sense, deep down, the chairlady wasn't a stranger. That night, Elena laid the dress across her bed and smoothed the fabric with her palm. Her hand trembled once. Just once. Then she forced it still. She set her phone face down and whispered, "Show up. Share this video with someone who loves messy rich people power games." Her attorney texted one line, "Recall triggers packaged. Waiting on your word." Elena stared at the screen. Then she locked it and whispered, "Soon. Follow the channel if you want to be here when the chairlady finally speaks." Elena met her attorney in a quiet office with the lights low, like the building itself didn't want to be seen. He slid a thin binder across the table. No fancy cover. No big title. Just a clean label. Triggers. Elena opened it and felt her pulse in her throat. Because inside were 8 ways to pull the plug on Gavin's life without ever touching him. Her attorney spoke like he was reading a grocery list. "Investor protection," he said. "That's how it's framed. That's how it survives." Elena didn't smile. She wasn't in a mood to celebrate. She was in a mood to finish. He tapped the first page. 8 triggers. 8 doors. Gavin had been slamming doors in her face for years. Now she had keys. Elena read them out loud, slow, like she was taking an oath. 1. Divorce finalized changes governance risk. 2. Any attempt to shift control to a new partner. 3. Public dishonesty scandal that hurts investor trust. 4. Undisclosed side deals inside acquisitions. 5. Faked board minutes or forged approvals. 6. Material lies to lenders or investors. 7. Evidence of self-dealing or misuse of funds. 8. Intimidation of the original technical author. Her attorney watched her face. Elena's expression didn't change, but her eyes did. They got calmer. That calm should have scared anyone who knew her, because it meant she was past heartbreak. She was in execution. Pause and comment. Which trigger do you think Gavin hits first? Type 1 through 8. Elena turned a page and saw the delivery plan. Certified mail. Counsel to counsel. Timing windows. Press blackout periods. It wasn't glamorous. It was surgical. Her ally stood behind her, hands on her shoulders. Not pushing. Not begging. Just there. Elena closed her eyes for a second. She almost leaned back. Almost. Then she stood up and stepped away. Not because she didn't want him. Because she wanted the ending more. Desire is a drug. And she couldn't be high when she pulled the switch. Her attorney cleared his throat. "Once you pull this," he said, "he won't just fight your claim." Elena looked at him. "He'll try to ruin my name," she finished. The attorney nodded. "He'll say you're crazy. He'll say you're bitter. He'll say you're greedy." Elena laughed once. Small. Dry. "Let him," she said, because all those words had one purpose. To keep people from looking at the paper. And Elena knew a secret Gavin didn't. Paper beats noise. Most of the time. She flipped to the page titled Clean Trigger Options. It had one line highlighted. Public misstatement. Elena tapped it. "Wait for him to lie again," she said. Her attorney nodded. "That's the cleanest trigger," he replied. In real deals, delays and reviews can stretch timelines for months, especially with heavier scrutiny, which makes the slow freeze Elena is engineering feel normal to outsiders. McKinsey. Elena packed the binder away like it was a weapon, because it was. Then she paused at the door and looked back. "Tell me the truth," she said. The attorney's brow lifted. "If this hits," Elena asked, "how fast does he fall?" The attorney didn't answer right away. He chose his words like they cost money. "Fast enough for him to feel it," he said. "Slow enough for you to prove it." Elena nodded. That was all she needed. If you want Elena to drop the triggers at the perfect moment, tap like and stay close. In the hallway, her ally leaned in like he might kiss her. Elena stopped him with one finger on his chest. Not angry, just honest. "After," she whispered. He held her gaze. "After what?" he asked. Elena's mouth tightened. She didn't answer. because the open loop wasn't for him. It was for the world. And it was for Gavin. Let him talk. Then she walked out. And for the first time all day, her hand shook, throws a stack of cash onto a conference table. And Gavin says the one thing he believes can solve any problem. Find her. The crisis firm didn't blink. They'd seen men like Gavin before. Men who think money is a flashlight. Men who think every shadow is hiding something they can purchase. Gavin didn't want a solution. He wanted a face, a photo, a name, a weak spot, because you can't bully a ghost. You can't flirt with a ghost. You can't threaten a ghost. And the chairlady was still a ghost. Comment ghost if you think the faceless enemy is driving Gavin crazy. The firm tried everything. Public records, private databases, old contacts, a paid tip line. They even called old enemies of Elena, hoping someone would sell a detail out of spite. Every path ended the same way. A wall, layered entities, locked addresses, signatures that looked real but led nowhere. The deeper they dug, the stranger it got. Not messy, too clean, like someone planned the invisibility on purpose. Gavin's general counsel warned him, if we push too hard, it looks bad. Gavin leaned back in his chair and smiled. I don't care how it looks, he said. I care how it ends. Then he added, low and ugly, I want her scared. That's when the council realized this wasn't just business. It was obsession. And obsession makes rich men stupid. The crisis team finally found one thing. A rumor. A whisper that the chairlady would be at the gala. No proof. Just a vibe. Gavin grabbed onto it like it was oxygen. He started offering money for a photo. Not even proof. Just a picture. One clean shot, he told them. I'll pay whatever. The firm warned him. That's risky. Gavin leaned forward. Everything is risky, he snapped. That's why they call me a billionaire. And then he said something that made the room go cold. If you find her, I want her past. Not her name, her past. The stuff people bury. The stuff you can use. That night, before the gala pre-event, Gavin pulled someone into a private room. It wasn't romance. It was therapy. He needed to feel wanted. He needed to feel in control. He needed someone to say, you're still the man. The person laughed, kissed his jaw, ran hands over his suit. Gavin didn't relax. He got possessive. Like if he squeezed hard enough, his fear would leak out and disappear. But fear doesn't leave that way. Fear stays. It watches. It waits. And it whispers, she's beating you. If you've ever watched power turn into panic, hit like. Gavin walked out of the room and forced a smile for cameras. He shook hands. He laughed too loud. He performed. But between flashes, he checked his phone. No updates. No face. No chairlady. Just silence. And silence was the one thing Gavin couldn't stand. Then his general counsel's laptop chimed. An email. Subject line. I have proof of side deals. The counsel's eyes widened. Gavin saw it and snatched the screen. He read it once. Then twice. His smile slipped. Not in public. Just for half a second. Long enough for the truth to show. He wasn't afraid of Elena. He was afraid of everyone else who might hate him too. Save this video if you want the whistleblower reveal, because that's where the story turns mean. Gavin typed one word back. Name your price. Then he added a second message, even worse, or I'll make you disappear. His counsel grabbed his wrist. Don't send that, he warned. Gavin yanked free and hit send anyway. And in that moment, Gavin didn't realize it, but he had just handed Elena another piece of evidence. Turn on notifications because the next move is going to hit him from inside his own circle. The whistleblower wasn't Elena. That's what made it dangerous. Because Elena's plan was clean. But strangers are messy. And messy can either save you or burn you alive. Elena learned about the email the same way she learned everything now. Through distance. Through paper. Through people who didn't put their names in texts. Her attorney called. We got a signal, he said. Elena didn't ask who. She asked, what did he do? Her attorney paused. He offered money, he said. Elena closed her eyes. Of course he did, she whispered. A meeting was set, indirect, safe, quiet. A dim cafe. No cameras. No drama. Elena sat in the back booth with her hood down and her posture straight. Her ally sat beside her, close enough that their knees brushed under the table. It was a small touch, but it grounded her. The intermediary arrived alone, just a tired person with careful eyes. They slid a phone across the table. Audio, they said. Emails. Dates. Elena didn't grab it. She looked at the intermediary. Why now? She asked. The intermediary's mouth tightened. Because he promised me something, they said. And then he laughed when I asked for it. Revenge. Plain. Human. Elena understood that language. Her ally leaned in and whispered, "This could get ugly." Elena whispered back, "It already is." Comment ugly. If you think the whistleblower is about to blow the roof off. You're not the only one he used, the intermediary added. Elena didn't blink. I know, she replied. Elena wasn't creating enemies. She was organizing them. She asked one question. Is he going on camera again? The intermediary nodded. Next week, they said. Another interview. Another lie. Elena's chest tightened. Fear flashed. Then relief. Because relief meant timing. She finally picked up the phone and glanced at the first audio file. It was labeled with a date that matched one of Gavin's charity nights. Elena's stomach turned. The intermediary watched her reaction. You want us to drop it now? They asked. Elena set the phone down. If you drop it now, she said. He spins it as a one-off. He cries. He smiles. He walks away. Her ally's hand slid to the small of her back, warm and steady. Elena didn't lean in, but she didn't pull away either. Elena looked at the intermediary. Tell your person this, she said. If they want justice, they wait. The intermediary frowned. Why wait? Elena's smile was soft, dangerous. Because when he lies on record, she said, the world does the punishing for us. If you're watching right now, share this to your group chat and ask them whose side they're on. The intermediary left. Elena sat there for a moment, listening to the clink of cups and the fake normal of strangers. In her head, it cut fast. Gavin's polished sound bites on TV, and Elena's quiet stapler sealing documents at midnight. Her ally whispered, You okay? Elena stared out the window. No, she said. Then she added, quieter. But I'm ready. She opened her notes app and typed one line. Proceed after his next interview. Then she stared at the words, because she knew what came next. Gavin would lie. The whistleblower would strike. And Elena would have to decide whether to stay hidden or step into the light. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because the next chapter is the interview lie, and that's when Elena pulls the pin. As they walked out, Elena's phone buzzed with a fresh alert. Gavin. Exclusive, sit down. Elena didn't even open it. She just set her phone face down and whispered the rule one more time. Let him talk. And behind that calm voice, something else was waking up. Comment your country and type, let him talk, if you're ready for the next part. She hits play on Gavin's interview, and Elena freezes the screen mid-sentence, right on his smile. Because that smile is about to cost him. Like this if you've ever watched somebody lie with a straight face. Comment your country and tell me. Would you clap back fast? Or would you wait and hit harder? Gavin showed up to the studio early. Fresh suit. Fresh haircut. Fresh story. He walked past assistants like they were furniture, nodding at cameras like they were friends. He even joked with the makeup artist. Make me look innocent, he said, smiling. And everyone laughed. Because people laugh when a rich man gives them permission. The host sat across from him with cue cards and a soft voice. People are watching this one, the host said. Gavin spread his hands. Good, he replied. The first question was easy. Do you still talk to Elena? Gavin smiled. No, he said. She's gone. And she left with nothing. That wasn't even the worst lie. The host leaned in. Some people say she helped build parts of your system. Gavin laughed, slow and mean. Helped? He said. She didn't build anything. She can barely follow what we do. He said it like a joke. But the laugh didn't reach his eyes. Because somewhere in his chest he could feel it. He was being watched. Not by fans. By people who keep receipts. And by people who move money with one email. If you think Gavin's mouth is his biggest enemy, type his mouth. The host tried one more time. Then why is your team getting so many questions about governance? Gavin's smile got tighter. That's routine, he said. It's nothing. He said nothing the way he said Elena. Like he could shrink a person into a word. The interview ended with applause. Gavin stood up and soaked it in like sunlight. Off camera, his PR manager leaned close. Great job, she whispered. You sounded confident. Gavin nodded. I am confident, he said, but his eyes were already on his phone. No new messages. No new approvals. Just silence. In Tampa, Elena listened in her car with the volume low. Her hands were on the wheel. Her ally sat in the passenger seat. Quiet, like he knew the wrong word could break her focus. Gavin's voice poured out of the speakers like syrup, smooth, sweet, and fake. Elena's face didn't change, but her breathing did. Shorter, tighter. When Gavin said, she never built anything, Elena didn't flinch. She nodded once, like someone checking a box. Her attorney had warned her. The cleanest trigger is the one he gives you himself. And this was it. Public. Clear. Recorded. Elena opened her notes app and wrote the timestamp. Not because she needed it. Because she wanted it. She wanted the lie pinned down like a bug. Her ally finally spoke. You okay? Elena stared through the windshield. No, she said. Then she added, softer. But he just did it again. Her ally's hand moved toward her knee, careful. Elena let it rest there, just the weight, not the comfort. Desire tried to rise anyway. Not for Gavin. For peace. For a life where she didn't have to do this. But peace wasn't on the menu. Not yet. If you're still here, share this video because the next move is paperwork violence. Elena picked up her phone and typed one word to her attorney. Activate. She hit send. Then she shut the phone off. Because she didn't want to see the reply. She wanted to feel the impact. And in the real world, public misstatements can bring serious consequences, including enforcement actions built around misleading statements. SEC. Elena started the car. Her ally looked at her. You sure? He asked. Elena didn't answer with words. She answered by driving. Straight back to the rental. Straight back to the table. Straight back to the clock. Because once you pull a trigger like this, you don't get to pretend you didn't. And Elena wasn't pretending anymore. Tap like if you're ready for the first notice to hit Gavin in the middle of his next smile. The notices went out like quiet bombs. No sirens. No speeches. Just emails, letters, and legal language that made grown men sweat. The first one hit a lender's inbox at 8:04 a.m. By 8:10, the group chat with Gavin's board members went silent. That kind of silence is never peace. It's fear wearing a suit. First, a lender asked for updated governance comfort. Then a partner froze a closing date. Then a compliance team demanded explanations by end of day. Gavin's chief deal officer walked into his office holding a tablet like it was a medical diagnosis. Dallas is paused, she said. Gavin didn't look up. Unpause it, he snapped. She swallowed. They won't, she said. They're saying the risk profile changed after the divorce. Gavin's jaw tightened. After the divorce? He repeated. Like the divorce was a mosquito. Like he could swat it. He grabbed his phone and started calling people who usually pick up on the first ring. This time, voicemail. Voicemail. Polite email response. Another polite email response. It was like the whole world had suddenly learned a new word. No. Comment NO, if you love watching a bully get blocked by paperwork. Gavin stormed into a meeting with his general counsel. What is this? He demanded. Counsel pointed at the notice. It's a recall clause package, he said. It's being treated like investor protection. Gavin scoffed. Investor protection from what? Counsel didn't blink. From you, he said. That sentence hit Gavin harder than any lawsuit. Because it wasn't an attack. It was a label. And labels stick. Gavin tried to laugh it off. He couldn't. He felt his control slipping, and the feeling made him mean. He leaned in too close. His voice dropped low, almost intimate. "You work for me," he said. Counsel's face stayed calm. "I work for the company," he replied. If you've ever seen someone lose allies one by one, hit like. So Gavin did what he always does when the room stops clapping. He tried to buy control. He called a friendly contact and offered voting power. A quiet backdoor shift. Something clean enough to hide. Counsel grabbed the phone out of his hand. "Don't," he warned. "If you do that, it triggers another clause," he said. Then this turns from slow bleed to free fall. Gavin stared at him. For a second, Gavin looked small. Then the mask came back. He snatched the phone. He didn't make the call, but the urge stayed in his face like heat. That night, Gavin paced his penthouse like a trapped animal. He replayed Elena's courtroom smile in his head. Not soft, not sweet, final. He called Elena, straight to voicemail. He texted. No reply. Then he did the worst thing a man like Gavin can do. He panicked. He called a reporter. He offered exclusive details. He wanted to bury Elena under noise. But the noise didn't stop the notices. It just made the people around him ask, why is he talking so much? Share this story if you love when ego becomes evidence. In Tampa, Elena watched the updates roll in. 1 freeze, then 2, then 3. Her throat tightened, not from joy, from pressure. Her ally poured her water. Elena didn't touch it. She just stared at the next email. Subject line, immediate meeting requested. Elena exhaled. Relief, then dread. Because the moment people stop asking Gavin questions, they start asking who's behind it. And Elena wasn't ready to be seen. Not yet. Comment your country and type, who is SHE? If you think they're about to figure it out. Across the table, the medical folder sat there like a threat. Elena didn't open it. She didn't need to. She could feel the date inside her bones. And she knew Gavin was about to do something stupid to feel big again. Stay to the end, because the next chapter is where Gavin decides to sue and Elena smiles. Gavin decided to sue. Not because it was smart. Because it felt good. He wanted a headline that said he was fighting back. He wanted to drag Elena into a public brawl where charm and money usually win. He told his team, file it today. His assistant hesitated. Sir, the board. Gavin cut her off. The board follows me, he said, but his voice had a crack in it. The kind you hear when someone's confidence is acting. His counsel tried to stop him. If you sue her, counsel said, discovery opens everything. Gavin's eyes lit up. Good, he said. I want everything. Counsel's voice went flat. No, he said. She wants everything. Gavin hated that. He hated that Elena had turned his favorite weapon, attention, into a trap. Because facts survive louder voices. That's why Elena wasn't scared of court. Court was a place where paper speaks. If you believe facts beat vibes, type facts. In Tampa, Elena didn't celebrate the lawsuit threat. She prepared. She cleared the table, lined up folders, and wrote one list on a yellow pad. What he'll claim, what we can prove, what we never reveal yet. Then she opened a sealed folder her attorney had told her to keep untouched. Final proof. She didn't open it all the way, just enough to see the first page. A date, a signature, and a line that made her stomach go cold. She slid it back like it burned. Because that file wasn't for court. It was for a stage. A place where Gavin couldn't cut the mic. A place where donors and executives would be forced to listen. The New York Gala. And Elena needed that room full. Because she wasn't just taking money back. She was taking the story back. She practiced one sentence in the bathroom mirror. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just clean. The kind of sentence that makes rich people stop chewing. Her ally found her at the kitchen sink. He stepped behind her and wrapped his arms around her. Gentle. No pressure. No demand. Just warmth. Elena let herself breathe. For 10 seconds, she felt like a person again. Desire hit. then grief, because the clock doesn't stop for tenderness. She kept her eyes open, watching the reflection of the microwave clock in the window. Her ally kissed her shoulder. Elena closed her eyes, then opened them again. Discipline. Always discipline. If the story has you stressed, drop a comment so it pushes to more people. In Manhattan, the gala host rehearsed the introduction in an empty ballroom. Please welcome the chairlady of the Parent Energy Group. The words echoed off crystal and gold. A name was printed on the card, but it was covered. Even the host hadn't been told. Security was tight, paperwork tighter. Elena's attorney called. You're sealed proof, he said. Are you sure you want to save it? Elena stared at the medical folder on the table, then at the gala date, then at the pen. Yes, she said, because she needed Gavin to do one more thing. One more lie. One more public swing. So when she answered, nobody could call it personal. It would be correction. And if this all ends in a court-run asset sale, the process can include marketing, bidding procedures, an auction, and a court hearing to approve the highest or otherwise best bid. Hit like if you think Elena's waiting for the perfect last lie. Her phone buzzed. A message from the unknown number. He booked a press conference. Elena didn't reply. She didn't even blink. She just wrote one line on her page. Let him speak. Then she underlined it. Twice. Because the stage was set. And Gavin was walking toward it smiling, not knowing the lights were about to hit him from every angle. Subscribe because the next part is the gala, and that's where the mask comes off. The New York ballroom glowed like a dream people pay to enter. Crystal lights, soft music, laughter that sounded too sharp. Cameras floated between tables. Gavin walked in smiling, dressed like a man who thinks the story already ended. He shook hands, kissed cheeks, and let donors pat his back. Then he saw her. Elena. Simple black gown. No flashy revenge look. Just certainty. At first, people didn't recognize her. That was the point. Gavin's gaze dragged over her like memory, like hunger, like possession he no longer had. His smile stayed on 1 second too long. Comment right now when someone underestimates you. Do you correct them? Or do you wait? The host stepped to the mic and tapped it twice. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, please welcome the chairlady of the Parent Energy Group. Gavin lifted his glass, ready to clap. Then the host looked straight at Elena and read the name. The room leaned in. Gavin's hand froze midair because he finally understood. The faceless chairlady wasn't coming. She was already here. Elena walked to the stage like she owned the floor. Not rushed, not nervous, just done. The room watched her, confused, curious, and suddenly quiet. A fork dropped somewhere. Gavin stayed seated, smile glued on, eyes burning. He leaned toward his lawyer and whispered, "Fix this." The lawyer didn't move, because lawyers can't fix truth. Elena took the microphone. She didn't clear her throat. She didn't thank anyone. She looked out at the donors, the executives, the cameras. Then she looked straight at Gavin. And she said one sentence, calm as a weather report, sharp as a blade. The first money that stabilized your empire came through my family trust, by proxy, and that trust includes a recall clause with defined triggers. The air changed. People stopped smiling. A few people actually stopped chewing. Someone at the front table mouthed, "Oh my God!" Gavin's face didn't fall right away. Tightened, like his skin was trying to hold his ego in place. He stood up too fast. Chairs scraped. Heads turned. A donor whispered, "So she's the money." Another donor whispered back, "No, she's the control." Gavin's voice came out low. "Elena," he said, like he was warning her, like he still had the right. Elena kept speaking. No yelling, no shaking, just facts. She explained the triggers like they were seatbelt rules. If you do X, the money pulls back. If you do Y, the deals pause. If you lie on record, people ask questions you can't charm away. She didn't say Gavin's name again. She didn't have to. Every person in that room knew who she meant. Type stage. If you've ever dreamed of telling the truth where nobody can cut you off. Across the room, Gavin's board members started looking at each other. Not like friends, like strangers on a sinking boat. Gavin tried to pull a donor aside with a smile. The donor stepped back. That tiny step felt like a slap. And that's when Gavin understood he wasn't losing money. He was losing the room. Gavin moved fast. He slid between tables, smile back on, like he could sweet-talk his way into control. When he reached the stage steps, Elena stepped down. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She met him in the aisle. Gavin lowered his voice, intimate on purpose. "You're making a mistake," he said. His hand reached for her wrist the way it used to. The old habit. The old ownership. Elena removed his hand with one finger. Polite. Final. Gavin blinked like he'd been slapped. Fear flashed in his eyes. Not fear of losing money. Fear of being seen. Because money can be replaced. A reputation can't. Hit like if you felt that wrist moment in your chest. Elena leaned in close enough for only him to hear. "There's also an IP issue," she whispered. "And I'm done asking privately." Gavin's lips parted. He didn't have a line ready. For the first time in his life, he didn't have a line. Elena turned back to the crowd. "Enjoy your dinner," she said. Then she walked away. Gavin stood there, holding nothing. Not her wrist. Not the room. Not the story. Then he looked toward the cameras and forced the smile back on. Because tomorrow he was going to hold his own press conference. And he was going to lie again. Comment your country and type silence1. If you think Gavin just realized he's not in control. Share this video if you want the next section where Gavin tries to get loud again. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next part is where he swings back. And Elena doesn't blink. If you made it this far, type, "I'm still here." He slams the ballroom doors behind him, and Gavin walks out like he's late to his own funeral. Hit like if you've ever watched someone lose control in real time. Comment your country. Did you want Elena to stop him on that stage, or let him hang himself? Gavin didn't even wait for dessert. He shoved past donors, cameras, and smiles that suddenly looked scared. Outside the ballroom, his lawyer caught up, breathing hard. "We can spin this," the lawyer said. Gavin's jaw was locked. "Spin?" he snapped. "She just took the room from me." He pushed into a private hallway, and that's when Elena's attorney stepped into his path. Not loud, not dramatic, just blocking the door like a wall. "Mr. Hale," the attorney said. Gavin's eyes narrowed. "Elena hiding behind lawyers now?" he asked. Elena's attorney held out an envelope. Gavin snatched it and tore it open right there. One page, then another, then the title, bold and ugly, "Cease and Desist." Gavin laughed. Not because it was funny, because he didn't know what else to do. "This is just a letter," he said. And he was right. By itself, a cease-and-desist letter isn't a court order. It's a formal warning that legal action can follow. But Gavin's hands still shook. Because the letter wasn't the knife. It was the handle. The knife was what came next. "Your company is using software Elena authored," the attorney said, calm as ice. Gavin's laugh stopped. "Elena doesn't write code," he said, too fast. The attorney tilted his head. "Then it shouldn't be hard to explain why the early architecture documents match her drafts," he replied. Gavin's face drained. A few feet away, Elena stood with her ally. Not clinging, not hiding, just standing there like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole marriage. Her ally leaned close, voice low. "Breathe," he said. Elena swallowed. Her eyes stayed steady. But her hands finally betrayed her. They trembled once. Not fear of Gavin. Fear of time. Fear of what happens when you pull the biggest lever and you can't put it back. CTA. If you've ever been underestimated at work, type, "They didn't know." Gavin's lawyer tried to recover. "This is a work-made-for-hire situation," he said quickly, grabbing for a lifeline. Elena's attorney didn't raise his voice. "A work-made-for-hire makes the employer the owner in certain cases," he said. "But Elena was never your employee, and there's no signed assignment." Copyright. Gavin stepped forward, shoulders tight. "You planned this," he hissed at Elena. Elena's face stayed calm. I plan to survive you, she said. Then she added, softer, almost sad. You made it easy. That line didn't sound like revenge. It sounded like a report. Gavin hated that more. He lowered his voice, private, almost tender on purpose. You're trying to ruin me, he said. Elena didn't flinch. I'm trying to take back what's mine, she answered. Gavin turned away. Not confident, not smooth, just furious. Share this with a friend who loves billionaire meltdowns. Follow the story because this is the part where he stops being smart and starts being loud. In the quiet corner of the hallway, Elena's knees almost gave out. Her ally caught her gently and pressed her against the wall. Steady, careful. Hey, he whispered. He kissed her forehead, then her mouth. Slow, like he was lending her warmth without asking for anything back. For 1 second, Elena kissed him like she wanted to live. Then she pulled away, breathing hard. I can't get distracted, she said. Her ally nodded. I know, he replied. But you don't have to be alone. Elena looked down at her phone. A sealed file sat in her drafts. Final proof. Still locked. Still waiting. And Gavin, somewhere outside, was already calling his PR team. Because he couldn't stand not being the loudest voice. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because Gavin's next lie is going to wake up every monster he's been feeding. Gavin flew to California like running west could change the facts. He booked a theater-sized room. He hired extra security. He even asked for brighter lights. Because bright lights make people look confident. And confidence is the only mask he still had. Backstage, his PR manager laid out talking points. Do not mention the trust, she said. Gavin smirked. I'm going to mention whatever I want, he replied. He adjusted his cufflinks like he was getting married again. Only this time he was marrying the camera. He walked out to the podium and smiled like the gala never happened. My ex-wife is running a scam, Gavin said. He said Elena's name like it tasted bad. He called her a fraud. He called her bitter. Then he said the word he knew would stick to her. Hacker. Reporters leaned in. Gavin loved that feeling. He loved hearing his own voice bounce off walls. A reporter raised her hand. Did Elena contribute to your core system? Gavin chuckled. Contribute, he said. She can't even understand it. He tried to make the room laugh. Some people did. Not because it was funny. Because laughing keeps you safe around men like Gavin. Another reporter asked, why are lenders pausing deals? Gavin's smile tightened. Routine, he said. Temporary. But his eyes kept darting. Because he was waiting for his phone to buzz. For someone powerful to tell him it was fixed. Nothing. Just silence. And behind the cameras, a reporter brushed close, flirting for access. Gavin's hand slid to her waist. Too tight. Not romantic. Possessive. Then he let go like he'd burned himself. Because even touch didn't calm him anymore. Comment, he's lying. If you can feel Gavin digging his own hole. Elena didn't go on TV. She didn't tweet. She didn't cry on camera. She sent receipts. Not to fans. To auditors. To lenders. To partners. To the kind of people who don't care about charm. They care about paper. In a small office, an audit team started asking questions Gavin couldn't answer with a smile. Who approved the side deals? Where are the board minutes? Why does the money trail split like a river? And then, right when Gavin's press conference clipped across every business feed, Elena's attorney released the sealed proof. Not a rant. Not an interview. A video. Gavin in a private room months earlier. No cameras he knew about. No audience. Just him talking like the truth couldn't bite him. I'm gonna cash out, Gavin said on the video. Then I'm gone. Let the rest burn. The clip was short, but it hit like a truck. Because now Gavin wasn't just arrogant. He was reckless. And in real life, regulators do bring enforcement cases tied to false or misleading statements, which is why public lies can become a serious risk. Sec. Backstage, Gavin watched the clip on his phone. His smile cracked. He shoved the phone at his PR manager. Kill it, he snapped. She stared at the screen. We can't, she whispered. It's everywhere. Gavin's throat worked. Then his anger came back, hot and fast. "Who gave her that?" he demanded. Nobody answered, because everybody in that room suddenly remembered every time Gavin humiliated someone. Every time he laughed at a nobody. If you've ever watched someone get haunted by their own mouth, tap like. Share this if you want Gavin's next move, and why it backfires even worse. In Tampa, Elena listened to the press conference audio in her car. She didn't watch the video. She didn't need to. She could hear his fake confidence. Her ally sat beside her. He leaned in and kissed the side of her neck once. Gentle, not demanding. Elena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Then her eyes hardened again. Because relief is a trap. She sent one message. Proceed. Save this video if you want to see what happens when a board realizes the CEO is the risk. It didn't collapse with a scream. Collapsed with a schedule. Meeting. 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 Every calendar invite felt like a shovel. Lenders sent reservation of rights. Partners asked to pause pending review. A major customer demanded assurances in writing. And the audit Elena pushed through back channels started spitting out ugly words. Self-dealing. Side deals. Missing approvals. Money trails that didn't match the story Gavin sold on stages. Gavin tried to keep the office loud. He ordered lunches. He cracked jokes. He walked around like a king doing inspections. But the smiles around him were stiff. People were scared. Not of Elena. Of the fallout. His chief deal officer walked into his office with her eyes glassy. "We're out of runway," she said. Gavin sneered. "We build runway," he replied. She didn't argue. She just slid a stack of emails onto his desk. Paused. Frozen. Pending. Gavin's hand twitched. He wanted to throw something. Instead, he did what he always did. He looked for a person to crush. He dragged his general counsel into the conference room and shut the door. "You let her do this," he said. Counsel's voice stayed calm, but his face looked tired. "If you sue her," counsel said, "discovery opens everything." Gavin's nostrils flared. "Open it," he snapped. Counsel didn't move. "Gavin," he said softly. "It's not her you should be scared of in discovery." Gavin froze. "Who then?" Counsel swallowed. "The board," he said. "Because the board doesn't love you. The board loves survival. Comment the board if you know the real knives are quiet." That night, the board did something Gavin never thought they'd do. They met without him. No invite. No packet. No warning. Just silence. The same silence Gavin used to use on Elena. Now it was being used on him. When the vote happened, Gavin wasn't in the room. He was in his penthouse pacing, sweating through a shirt that cost more than most people's rent. His phone buzzed. One message. From the chair. "We need you to step aside." Gavin stared at it like it was a prank. Then he called. Straight to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. His chest tightened. This wasn't business anymore. This was exile. He tried to run to the press. But reporters weren't taking his calls. Because now they smelled blood. And blood makes people brave. Share this part if you love watching a bully lose his crowd. Drop a comment if you've ever seen a powerful man get left on read. In Tampa, Elena got the update through her attorney. Board initiating removal. Elena read it. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyes got wet. Not happy tears. Just release. Like her body finally stopped bracing for the next slap. Her ally found her in the kitchen. He didn't ask questions. He just stood behind her and held her. Elena let herself lean back. For the first time in a long time. "I hate him," Elena whispered. Then her voice cracked on the next words. "And I still miss what I thought we were." That's the part nobody likes to admit. The grief inside the win. Her ally turned her gently. He kissed her slow. No rush. No taking. Just comfort. Later, when the phone stopped buzzing, he undressed her carefully. Not for show. Not to prove anything. To remind her she was still alive. "Hold me like time isn't chasing me," Elena whispered. And he did. But Elena's eyes stayed open. Because the clock doesn't care about tenderness. If that line hit like. By morning, the headline hit. Gavin Hale faces restructuring. Potential asset sale. Elena read it once. Then she closed her laptop. Because she knew what came next. Court. An auction. And one last fight where paper decides the future. Subscribe, because the next chapter is the Delaware auction, and Elena walks in with a number that sounds like a joke. The courthouse in Delaware was cold in a way money can't fix. Gray walls. Hard benches. People who whisper like the building records everything. Lawyers moved fast and quiet, carrying files like they weighed 100 pounds. Gavin wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He couldn't handle a room where charm doesn't matter. But Gavin still tried. He sent a proxy bidder. A friendly investment guy in a crisp suit. A man whose job was to sit still and raise a paddle. Elena saw him the second she walked in. And she understood. Gavin didn't want the IP. He wanted Elena not to have it. That's how you know a person is truly sick. They don't chase winning. They chase you losing. Elena walked in with her ally. No dramatic entrance. Just a folder in her hand. And a calm face that made people nervous. Comment auction day. If you've been waiting for this moment. The IP portfolio sat on the list like a body on a table. Bidders studied it with fear. Because buying dirty IP can turn into a lawsuit that eats your whole year. The bidding started high. Numbers that made normal people dizzy. Elena didn't blink. The proxy bidder looked over and smirked. Like he thought she would fold. Because everybody expects the quiet woman to fold. The auctioneer asked for the next bid. Elena waited. Let the room heat up. Let Gavin's proxy feel brave. Then Elena raised her hand. The room turned. Elena. She spoke like she was ordering coffee. $30, she said. A few people laughed. Then they stopped. Because Elena didn't laugh. And her lawyer didn't laugh. Elena slid one page to the front table. A clean statement. If you buy this and try to use it, the authorship dispute follows you. Not maybe. Not later. Now. And in a Section 363 sale process, assets can be marketed and sold through bid procedures and an auction, with a court hearing to approve the highest or otherwise best bid. Goodwin Law. The proxy bidder's lawyer leaned in and whispered. The proxy bidder's smile died. He raised his paddle anyway. 21 million, he said, trying to sound fearless. Elena leaned forward. Put your name on that bid, she said softly. He hesitated. Because he knew exactly what she meant. If this gets ugly, the signatures follow you. The lawsuits follow you. The headlines follow you. Elena looked at the room. You can outbid me, she said quietly. But you can't outweight me. That sentence chilled the room. The proxy bidder lowered his paddle. Then other bidders backed off too. Because nobody wanted to pay millions for a war with no finish line. Any higher bids? The auctioneer asked. Silence. Sold, he said. To Elena. For $30. Elena didn't cheer. She just exhaled. Relief. Then grief. Because now the world would expect her to build something huge. To turn pain into a trophy. But Elena wasn't building trophies. She was racing time. Outside the courthouse, her ally pulled her into the shadow of a column. He kissed her once, harder than before. Like he was trying to keep her from floating away. Elena pressed her forehead to his chest, breathing like she was carrying too much. If you felt that courthouse kiss, hit like. Share this video because the final chapter is Elena's goodbye, and it's not the goodbye anyone expects. Elena whispered. They think this is the end. Her ally said. It's not. Elena looked back at the courthouse doors. It's the last turn, she said. And the question still hung there, heavy. What does she do with the thing she just won? Elena didn't throw a party. She didn't take interviews. She didn't post a victory photo. She sat at the same small table in Tampa. The same cheap pen. The same medical folder on the corner like a shadow. Her ally watched her type. Line after line. Not code. Words. Public statement. By morning, the headline was everywhere. Elena Hale releases core plans as open source. People didn't understand. Why give it away? Why not build an empire of her own? Why not crush Gavin the way he tried to crush her? Because Elena wasn't trying to be Gavin. She was trying to erase him from what she built. So no single ego could own it. So his name couldn't cling to it. Comment, she let it go. If you didn't see that coming. Gavin went on TV again. He tried to call her unstable. He tried to call her selfish. But the words didn't land. Because the world had already watched him lie. They had already watched him grab and grab and grab. And now they were watching Elena do the one thing he could never do. Release control. Gavin was left with headlines. But no legacy. Because legacy is what stays when the noise fades. And Elena made sure his fingerprints got wiped clean. That night, Elena finally opened the medical folder all the way. Her ally sat beside her. He didn't speak. He just stayed. Elena read the timeline. Then she laughed once. Soft. Not funny. Just disbelief. Her eyes filled. And this time she let the tears fall. Quiet. Real. She closed the folder. Then she leaned into her ally like she'd been holding herself up with nails. He wrapped his arms around her. This time she didn't pull away. This time she let herself be held fully. Elena whispered into his shirt. I wasn't building a throne. Her voice shook. I was racing a clock. Her ally held her tighter. And Elena let herself be small for one night. They stayed close, slow and quiet. No chasing. No proving. Just closeness. And in the dark, Elena whispered the truth under every move she made. I just wanted my work to outlive the noise. But even now, one question stayed open. Did Gavin really believe she was nothing? Or did he know the truth the whole time and still chose to steal it? That answer? That's the part he'll take to his grave. If you made it to the end, comment, I saw it. Subscribe if you want the next story to be even darker. Like this video if the story hit you in the chest. Comment your country you're watching from. Comment, silence is a strategy. If you believe quiet can be dangerous. Share this story with someone who thinks winning is always loud. Subscribe for more twist-heavy stories with full endings.